Hello, this is Mrs. Freeze, and today we're going to be looking at lesson 5 and 6 from chapter 12, volume of prisms and volume of cylinders. What is volume? It's the amount of space a solid occupies. In other words, it tells us how many 1 unit by 1 unit by 1 unit cubes it would take to fill the inside of a solid. If you look at this rectangular prism here, and I push play, you can see that we are trying to fill the inside of this rectangular prism with cubes, cubic units. The bottom layer is a 3 by 3, so that tells us that we have 9 cubes that fill the bottom layer. If we continue filling the inside of our rectangular prism, I would say it would take 2 more layers of 9 cubes to finish filling the inside of this rectangular prism. So 9 cubes times 3 layers, that tells us that the volume of this rectangular prism is 27 cubic units. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about volume. Well, today we're going to be finding the volume of these prisms. I have a cube and a rectangular prism. You can call both of those a rectangular prism. And I also have a triangular prism. And then we're going to be finding the volume of cylinders. The formula to find the volume of any of the figures that we just talked about, a prism or a cylinder, is the area of the base. That's what the uppercase B stands for. So you can see I have it written out here in words. This V is my volume. Uppercase B stands for the area of the base, and then of course you need to multiply that by the height of the figure. So I want to make sure that you have a straight edge. It can be a ruler, it can be the edge of a book, and a pencil, because we're going to be drawing our prisms and our cylinder today. Okay, so if you need to go grab those materials, pause the video and do so now. All right, so the first part of making our rectangular prism is just going to be draw a rectangle between 2 of your lines in your composition book. And then up to the right, draw another rectangle, same size and shape, meaning it's congruent. And then we're just going to connect the top left corner of those 2 rectangles. And then the bottom left corner with a dotted line, kind of makes it look more three-dimensional. And then connect the top and bottom corners on the other side. So now we've drawn a rectangular prism. Let's label it with our units. Okay, this is a 15 by 17 by 4. Now our formula tells us that we need to find the area of the base times the height. We need to be able to identify the base of any of these solid figures. On any solid figure, the base always is congruent and parallel to the other side. Bases are always congruent and parallel. Well, any 2 sides are congruent and parallel on a rectangular prism, so we can call any side the base on a rectangular prism. In this case, I'm just going to use my base here. This is a 15 by 17, right? So my volume is going to be found by finding the area of the base, 15 times 17. And then the height of my figure always comes between the bases. I call this a base, and then of course the base that's congruent and parallel to it is up here, okay? So the height is 4, not 8. Okay, so now we're just going to use our calculator and multiply these out. 15 times 17 is 255 times 4. That gives us that the volume of this figure is 1,020 cubic feet or feet cubed. So that's how many cubes would fit inside of this rectangular prism. Okay, let's look at a triangular prism. And again, we're going to draw one in your composition book. The first thing I want you to do is draw a triangle, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. I used 4 spaces in between the top of my triangle and the base. And then over to the right and up, You're going to make another triangle that's exactly the same size and shape. Now let's connect the top of our triangles and then connect the bottom left with a dotted line. And then again, connect the bottom right. So that's my triangular prism. Now remember the bases, because we want to find the area of the base. The bases are always congruent and parallel. So the base on a triangular prism always has to be the triangle because those are the only two sides that are congruent and parallel. All right, because the height comes between the bases. Okay, let's label it with our units. First of all, the height, it comes between the bases is 15. So it's between the triangles. And then I'm going to label my base here. Okay, I've got 6.5 for the base of this triangle, and the height of the triangle is 8. All right, so I'm going to find the area of my base, which is my triangle. Okay, the area of my base. Put that dotted line back. So the volume is going to be the area of my base. That's 1/2 the triangle. So my formula is 1/2 my base times my height. 1/2 of 6.5 times 8. That's the height of my triangle. And then the height of my figure comes between the two bases. That's 15. Well, half of 8 is 4. And 4 times 6.5 is 26 and 15/100 times the height of my figure, which is 15. And when I multiply all of that out, I get that my volume is 390 inches cubed. So 390 cubes would fit inside of this triangular prism. Last example, let's look at a cylinder. I love it because the formula is the same. I'm going to find the area of the base and multiply by the height of my figure. All right, are you ready to draw a cylinder? First, I want you to draw, it's not quite a circle, it's a little bit like an oval, just because we want it to look like a cylinder when we have the illusion of a cylinder on our page. And then let's draw another one, same shape, same size, which means these two are congruent, so draw it right above. These are our bases. They are congruent and parallel. And then we're going to connect both of those. Okay, there is our cylinder. And let's label it. I see that this 6 inches is written right above the center of my circle, so that's the diameter. It goes all the way across. And then the height of my figure is 12. All right. Well, I need to find the area of the base. Well, my base is a circle. Remember, to find the area of a circle, it's just pi times radius squared, or you can say radius squared times pi. So I'm going to find the area of my base. I've got here that 6 inches is my diameter, so I need to cut that in half. My radius is 3 inches. So my radius times my radius, that's 3 squared. I'm going to use 3.14 for pi because it tells me to. Please do that in your book as well. When you do your homework, use 3.14 for pi. And the height of my figure is 12. So let's find the area of the base. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3.14 is 28. And 26/100 times my height, which is 12. So that tells me that my volume, when I multiply it out, is 339 and 12/100. So I look up here and it says round to the nearest tenth. Please make sure you're rounding to the nearest tenth if it tells you to. Underline the number in the tens place. 2 tells 1 to stay the same. So my volume is going to be 339 and 1/10. feet, nope, not feet, inches cubed. Okay, so 339 and 1/10 cubic inches would fit inside this cylinder. Please make sure, again, that you round when it tells you to round and use 3.14 for pi, so your answers in edge elastic match. Well, let's look at some different looking figures. This is a compound figure. We used a triangular prism and a rectangular prism to make this ramp here. So remember finding the area of compound figures? You just found the area of each figure and then added them together. That's exactly what we're going to do with this compound figure. Well, first I'm going to find the volume of this triangular prism here. Okay, I'm going to find the area of my base. Remember, the base is always the triangle on a triangular prism. So I'm going to find the area of that base. That's 1/2 times 10 times 2. And then the height of the figure always comes between the two triangles. So it's this measure right here. This measure is the same as this measure and this measure. So the height of this triangular prism is 3 feet times 3. Half of 20 is 10. 10 times 3 is 30. So the volume of my triangular prism is 30 cubic feet. Okay, now I'm going to find the volume of my rectangular prism. Area of my base, why that's not writing, is 6 times 3. So area of my base, 6 times 3, times the height of this rectangular prism is 2. 6 times 3 is 18, and 18 times 2 is 36 feet cubed. And I need to add those two volumes together to get the total volume of this ramp. 30 plus 36 is 66 feet cubed. That's the volume of the ramp, 66 feet cubed. Okay, last problem. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and work this problem out on your own, and then we will come back and work it out together. Okay, let's see how you did. It says find the volume of the plastic building brick shown at the right, round to the nearest tenth. So we're not going to round until the very end. Okay, looking at my figure, I see that I have 2 cylinders and they are identical in size, and then I have a rectangular prism. Let's do the rectangular prism first. That's super easy. The volume of that is my base, 5 times 12, times the height of my figure, which is 4. 5 times 12 is 60. 60 times 4 is 240 inches cubed. So that's the volume of my, I'm going to draw a little rectangle there, of my rectangular prism. Now I need to find the volume of my 2 cylinders. Volume of my 2 cylinders. The first thing I'm going to do on that is I'm just going to put a 2 out there because I just need to find the volume of one of them and multiply it by 2, right? So there are 2 cylinders. Now I know to find the volume of my cylinders, I have to find the area of the base. Well, it gives me 3 inches all the way across this circle. That tells me that my radius of each of my bases in my cylinders is 1.5 inches, right? The diameter is 3, the radius is 1.5. So 1.5 squared times my 3.14. That's the area of my base. And then the height it tells me right here is 1. That's got to do a lot of changing, right? The number 1. Okay, so let's look at the very inside of our parentheses. I have 1.5 squared, 1.5 times 1.5 times 3.14. And inside these parentheses, it is 7 and 65 thousandths times 1. 1 doesn't change anything, so I'm going to leave it off. Multiply 2 times 7 and 65 thousandths for my 2 cylinders. That gives me that the volume of my cylinders is 14 and 13 hundredths inches cubed. So now I need to add my 2 volumes. 240 plus 14 and 13 hundredths is 254 and 13 hundredths inches cubed. But if I look here, it tells me I need it to the nearest tenth. So again, I'm going to underline the number in the tenths place. 3 tells 1 to stay the same. So my rounded answer, the volume, is 254 and 1/10 inches cubed. That is my final answer. All right, go ahead and start your homework.